I'm going to call to order the January 6, 2026 regular meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. This clock says that clock's wrong, so we're going off of that one. What I would like to do is call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please silence your cell phones. Commissioner Zamudio, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to take a moment to offer up a blessing over this meeting. So here we go. Dear Lord, we come to you tonight to say thank you for this opportunity for us to serve our community. We ask that all people present offer wisdom and discernment to all of the issues and things that are on the agenda this evening. We ask your blessings on this meeting and for us to do the proper things at the proper time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we're going to start with item C, which is the consent calendar. Does anybody have any issue with the calendar as it's written?
Nope.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion the consent calendar be approved.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We're done. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move forward to item D1, which is ZC 2025-03 and CUP 2025-05. This is a request by Heidi Short on behalf of the Perkins Ranch Incorporated for a rezone of approximately 390 acres of land from single-family residential minimum 2 acres, SR2, to agricultural residential minimum 36 acres, AR36, and a request for a conditional use permit for the construction of a privately owned and operated airfield and its associated uses. Located east of the intersection of East Perkinsville Road and Forest Service Road 318A, Chino Valley, Arizona, 86323. Anybody on the commission spoken to anybody about this issue?
I spoke to staff about it yesterday. As well as spoke with Lori and Will about it yesterday.
Okay, I'll make sure your mics are all on. So I've spoken with town staff, Garchin Buddhist Institute, city council, mayor, and more people than I can quite remember, but it was all concerning this issue. So that takes care of that. Will, you want to give a presentation, please?
Sir. Alrighty. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of Commission. Gordon Vinge, Assistant Director here of Development Services. As read, the items before you this evening are the requested zone change ZC 202503 and CUP 202505 for the project, the Perkins Airfield. We will get right into it.
Will, could you pull your microphone a little closer, please?
Absolutely. Better?
Yes, thank you.
Usually I'm loud enough. Alrighty, so the project site itself is 390 acres. The original notice that went out was about 360 acres. However, after the completion of a boundary survey, the acreage went up after we incorporated in all of the right-of-way dedications that will likely have to happen down the line. That boosted that up to 390 acres. The project itself is located approximately 6.5 miles east of State Route 89, following East Perkinsville Road. You'll head past the sale barn. The project corner starts at the Forest Service Road 318A, or the narrow gauge road intersection with East Perkinsville Road, and then continues along it to the southeast of the road up until you leave Chino Valley Incorporated. There are two requests before you this evening. One is the zone change, single family residential 2 acre minimum to AR 36, agricultural residential 36 acre minimum. general area around the site, if you go to the north and to the east, is unincorporated or county designated land. The land wholly is, or predominantly is zoned RCU 2A, which is essentially the equivalent of the town of Chino Valley's SR2 zoning districts. To the north and to the east, you have directly state land. To the northeast, you have some of the homesteads along with the Garchan Buddhist Institute up here in the northeast corner. To the south and to the west, you have Chino Valley Incorporated properties. To the south directly, you have state land with state zoning in the light blue. You have additional SR2 single-family residential 2-acre minimum down here owned by the Perkins family. And then you have the Running W Ranch to the southwest, zoned AR4. And then additional Perkins land up here to the west. 2040 general plan designates this area as RA, which is ranch agricultural. Within this land use designation, it supports the AR 36 zoning district as a allowable district within here. The requested AR 36 district will bring this section of the property into conformance with the 2040 general plan, as the SR2 designation is not compatible with the 2040 plan. AR 36 uses. The purpose statement within this district is intended to allow for agricultural activities, residences, and customary accessory uses and buildings, and for other uses that occupy large acreage land. The permitted uses outright: single-family dwellings, guest houses, farming and agricultural, equestrian recreation facilities, libraries, museums, dude ranches, commercial stables. Conditional uses, those are those discretionary uses that we're here to talk about tonight. Privately owned and operated parks and recreation facilities, colleges, universities, and trade schools, golf, rod, gun, tennis, and country clubs, rodeos, fairgrounds, riding academies, and then what we're here tonight, airports, aircraft landing fields, and ancillary buildings. Now the conditional use permit itself. The proposal, I won't get super into this. We have a team in front of you this evening that will get into the nitty-gritty on this. Heidi Short will start a presentation here very soon. But I did want to give an overview of what the project is. It is a 4-phase project. Phase 1, blue, is the runway itself, 5,000 feet total, along with the associated tie-down area. Phase 2 in red is the runway extension, hangars, and the CAFMA fire station. And then phase 3 and 4, purple and green, are the commercial office space, educational, long-term aviation-related research, manufacturing, and supported uses that are all subject to future town review. I'm going to ask that Lori kind of explain this. She does a better job of explaining the difference between a conditional use and our development agreement that we have proposed tonight. She says it better than I can.
So the conditional use permit covers the use itself. Generally, the uses are not as intensive as this, and we know the entirety of the uses before we start. This project has a lot of unknowns in phase 3 and 4. We don't know who's going to want to come in and participate in this area. It'll be avionics related, but we don't have those details yet, so we can't condition those uses at this time. So the CUP will approve the site plan for a general list of uses, general types of uses. Each phase will have a development agreement attached to it. What that means is that each phase, we're going to look at everything that's going to happen in that phase, what use is coming in, what could be objectionable that needs to be mitigated, and that's how we come up with the conditions. The development agreement for us is a contractual agreement, and it's much easier to enforce than the conditional use permit. There's been some court cases that question whether with just a CUP, if someone's put a lot of money into a facility, if you could pull that away from them after they've done that investment. So it's a CUP for the site plan. We're doing a development agreement each phase, and each development agreement will be reviewed. It has to go to council for all the specifics of whatever is being proposed in that phase. So you'll get general today. We're looking at phase 1 approval now. The future ones will come back.
And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Heidi Short for the applicant's presentation, and then I will come back up following her conclusion. I opened myself.
Chairman Merritt, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Heidi Short, 201 East Washington in Phoenix, here tonight representing the Perkins family, and they are working with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Anytime I see a slide that looks somewhat similar to Will's, I'll try to speed through it. I promise this isn't very long. Will be if I can't make the slides. Oh, there we go, found it. Sorry, Will. All right, so also with me here tonight, it's Tom Perkins, several members of the Perkins family, Ken Wittitcher with Embry-Riddle, Scott Gazelle with Embry-Riddle, and Mark Plaslik with GMC, so they can answer technical questions and information about operations. As Will noted, we're here to discuss rezoning from SR2 to AR36 and at the associated conditional use permit. The vision of the property is to create a phased airfield that's going to generate an ecosystem of innovation here in Chino Valley that will foster economic opportunities. And Will had a great slide that showed where the property is, but we'll walk over here briefly to show the outline. You'll see, and we were very much aware in site design, that the site is between the Garson Buddhist Institute and Haystack Ranches. So why was this property picked and what are the details? As Will noted, it's approximately 390 acres, and that's a part of the historic Perkins Ranch property. The site was chosen for its clear approaches, favorable terrain, and distance from dense residential areas. We, again, when designing the site, very much aware of the key neighbors, and those key neighbors would be the Garson Buddhist Institute, a tranquil setting for spiritual retreats, and the Haystack Ranches subdivision, which is a premier residential community. And the site was designed with both of those in consideration at all times. It's, as noted by Lori and Will, it's a phased development approach, so 4 phases. And that approach allows for incremental development, and that allows for some adaptation and careful resource allocation as we go along. Each phase, as they noted, requires a development agreement that's considered by town council. And development phases can occur at different times. That's depending on the market. So we've already gotten interest, a lot of interest for some companies, and that might change some of the phases. But we would have to come to you for each phase. And we do know that the airstrip will be the first improvement. Without the airstrip, there's really nothing. So we know that's definitely phase 1 and the first improvement to go in. So let's look at phase 1. The timing is about 5 years, could be a little more, 5 to 7. And with flight operations projected to begin in late 2026 or early 2027. Key infrastructure in phase 1, a 5,000 foot by 75 foot runway, and a partial parallel taxiway, and an aircraft parking apron. That will have tie downs, but there's no intention to leave planes on the property. Those are required for safety protocol, and if a plane were to have mechanical issues, they would need tie downs to keep the plane secure. And of course, there would be essential safety equipment. Here is, actually Will's was a little nicer, a depiction of phase 1. You can see it shows up nicely there. The gray is the airstrip, and then there's another one that we'll talk about later. So the phase 1 airstrip goes to there, and that would be the So what are they doing out here? I think most people know what Embry-Riddle does. They train our future pilots. Their workhorse is the Cessna 172 Skyhawk, and that is a single-engine propeller-driven aircraft. That's the workhorse. That's their primary plane. The largest possible plane that Embry-Riddle uses is the Diamond DA-42NG. That is a twin-engine propeller-driven plane. And so what operations are we looking at phase 1? An average maximum of 20 takeoffs and 20 landings hourly, but I'm going to show you how that breaks down. Operating hours are 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. No tower. No tower on the site. It's visual operations only. Or visual, excuse me, I'll say that wrong. These guys will say that's not technically correct. It's visual only, no tower. So for the audience or people like me who aren't familiar with planes, this is what a Cessna Skyhawk 172 looks like. And this again is the workhorse for Embry-Riddle. So this is the largest plane for the flight school. This is that Diamond DA-42NG. It's a twin engine, and it's used for more advanced training. So what are the flight class and hours? What's going on out there? The operational hours, they're primarily daylight with limited evening operations. When they do evening operations, those are conducted with a high sensitivity for the neighbors. The flight patterns are standard traffic patterns that are used. Those are designed to have the aircraft fly over undeveloped areas as much as possible. I'm going to show you a slide here in a second where I can show you that 70% of the time they're going to use runway 3 and 30%, runway 21 is going to be used 70% of the time, and runway 3 is going to be used 30% of the time. And I'll have a slide that shows you what that is. But first, let's look at the hours of operation. From 5:30 to 6 a.m., they're going to have minimal operations. That's 0 to 5% of the daily total. The bulk of the operations are here at peak operations from 6 a.m. to noon. And on weekdays, that's 65 to 75% of the daily total, 45 to 55% on weekends. And then from noon to 8, there's moderate operations, and that's about 20 to 30% of the daily total. Then we get from 8 to 11:30 p.m., that's minimal operations again, from 0 to 5% of the daily total. If I recall, Prescott closes at 11:30, so if a plane broke down or they got way behind on training or something happened, they need to be able to get back to Prescott, and I believe Prescott closes at 11:30 or something like that. And then you'll note weekend operations are typically 60 to 70% of weekday volume, and approximately 15% of the days, so that's 1 in 7, there will not be planes in the pattern, and that's because of weather or cloud cover. All right, so this is a popular slide. The blue route is it the green light? What's my 70% route? Green?
Green.
Yes, thank you. Damn, my glasses on. The green route, that's the route that will be used 70% of the time, and the blue route will be used 30% of the time. You'll see where I have 2 X's here. That pattern has recently changed, and I couldn't change my schematic in time for this presentation, so Embry can give details regarding the route for that change. So noise, everyone wants to know about noise. The FAA's 65 DNL noise contour, and that's the threshold they use to determine significant noise exposure. That does not extend beyond 2,000 feet from the runway ends. They have low operational volume. The proposed activity is significantly below the FAA's 90,000 annual operation threshold for a noise study. And the aircraft type is, of course, substantially quieter than commercial jets or even agricultural equipment. So based on the traffic patterns in existing houses, the aircraft should be 1,000 feet in elevation. And there's a general rule of thumb here for anyone who wants to kind of roughly estimate what the decibels would be. This gets kind of mathematical, but I think everybody can see in free air, sound drops 6 decibels every time the distance doubles. So if you're like me, and those are just a bunch of numbers that don't mean anything to you, I tried to find some comparisons. And so remember, at the site, it's 70 decibels at the airstrip, 65 at the outer points of the airstrip. So a quiet conversation is 60 decibels, and the average pool pump, 65 to 85, passenger car is at 70, and I'll skip through these. Washing machine is at 60 to 70. Certainly know that noise. Here's some noise. This shows you the 65 DNL is the blue, and the red is 70. So that shows you the area in which the noise levels would occur. Traffic and access. So phase 1 traffic is going to be very minimal. There are 3 part-time field attendants proposed, and obviously the students arrive by aircraft. So there's going to be relatively low vehicular traffic. In future phases, that will be designed for higher value operations. So you're going to have some specialized transport, but not high volume conventional warehouse traffic. It's going to be specialized. So they're going to carefully manage traffic at the site. The daily vehicular movements are going to be managed to avoid any intensive impacts on local roads. And I'll note the access roads, of course, Perkinsville, Forest 318, A, and internal drives. When we come back with future phases, traffic impact studies will be required. And then based on the findings of those traffic impact studies, which are stamped by, sealed by an engineer, they will determine what improvements would be required for most likely Perkinsville Road. And this map just shows the primary routes. Blue is 89 and red is Perkinsville Road. Environmental stewardship. We did do an assessment of the site and it had unremarkable findings. And Game and Fish has reviewed the project and they find that it has their standard best management practices for wildlife and habitat. And that includes buffers, protection of drainage, wildlife exclusion fencing, and then they do sweeps of the property before operations. In later phases, there will be water and wastewater. That would be a well system and on-site septic. Of course, it will be designed to meet all standards and conditions. Safety, there's on-site firefighting equipment, trained personnel, and existing agreements with the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. Then we get to CAFMA. So Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority is going to provide comprehensive emergency services, and of course there is a future fire station that is planned between phases 2 and 3. So what are the benefits? There's going to be a significant benefit. That first airstrip that I just described will be a $15 million initial investment, and that's going to generate local construction activity. Without the airstrip, we have nothing. So once the airstrip comes, it starts to attract more and more. So in phase, you start to get direct and indirect high-paying jobs in aerospace, aviation, and advanced manufacturing sectors that support those. So in phase 2, you're looking at a CAFMA station, the extended airstrip. That extended airstrip, as I understand it, and a possible a hangar up to 10,000 square feet. This extension, the extended airstrip allows for that twin engine plane that they use for advanced training to land. And then in phase 3, we have operating capacity for anchors like Dillon Aero. Dillon is a defense contractor, and then Dillon needs support from other defense contractors, so more and more start to come. And at phase 4 and beyond, you have technicians, assemblers, engineers, logistic personnel, and some significant salaries. So really what they're looking at here is something very close, and pretty much replicating Embry-Riddle's Daytona Beach Campus Research Park, which has been attracting private investment and fostering new business and has grown quite a bit and has some high-tech jobs and manufacturing. The community profile, this will establish Chino Valley as a center for aviation excellence, enhancing regional and economic diversification, and it has potential collaborations with local schools, aviation career development, and STEM education. Here is the full build-out plan. I know Will showed this to you. I get my glasses on to make sure I get these phases right. So phase 1 is blue. You can see the blue, that's your first airstrip. That's what's going to go in right away. Phase 2, that's red. That's the extension of the airstrip. And then phase 3 is the purple, I'm going to call it purple area. And finally, phase 4 is green. And with that, we very much appreciate your time, and we have several people here to answer any questions that you may have.
take us home on here. Neighborhood meeting and the recent conducted test flight that occurred yesterday. Neighborhood meeting, it was held on November 26, 2025. All properties within 1 mile of the project were notified. Just want to call out here that state central mandate is that for any zone change, it's a 300-foot notice. That was not acceptable to us. We wanted to make sure we did as best as we could on this. So we extended it out to 1 mile. 25 individuals were in attendance at that meeting. Did want to point out too that staff recommended that the applicant reach out to Haystack Ranch and Garchin Buddhist Institute to attend this meeting. Many of them did. Primary concerns from that meeting revolved around impact to surrounding properties, impact and improvements to Perkinsville Road, that was a big one, and then clarity of future phases. Test flights. Yesterday, January 5th, 2026, between 12:45 p.m. and 1:30 p.m., Embry-Riddle conducted test flights with a 3-plane pattern. They did fly both the blue loop and the green loop here to indicate as best as they could without having a runway what the impact to the surrounding area was. The thing they could not do was a touch and go. That is I'll let them kind of talk through why, but ultimately it's a safety thing. While we were out there, staff through 5 separate spots observed noise of the flights at 5 separate locations with decibel readings ranging from 45 decibels to 62 decibels, and that was all depending upon what the plane was doing, whether it was banking and accelerating at the same time or decelerating. So our typical range was 45 decibels to 62 on the ground. I'm going to talk here for quite a bit because we're going to go through the conditions of approval here. So I think it's best that we go and read them. That way we're all kind of on the same page. They are in the staff reports, but I will try to make this as painless as possible, but it's not going to be easy. So just starting off, the first 2 here under Lori, the applicant shall comply with all conditions listed below, along with all applicable state, county, and town codes, rules, fees, and regulations. These are boilerplate conditions that we have attached to every single project we bring forward. Applicant shall sign a waiver of claims form, which the town will provide, recorded at the county's office prior to public hearings and final decision by town council. That is in works currently. Under my end here. So as a condition of approval for the CUP, conditional use permit, the applicant shall enter into a legally binding development agreement approved by town council. The conditional use permit authorizes only phase 1 of the airfield in concept. All enforceable obligations, limitations, and mitigation measures shall be memorialized in the development agreement. At a minimum, the development agreement shall expressly provide the following. Development agreement shall establish an agreed upon airspace use, aviation operations associated with phase 1 airfields as follows. The definition of flight and operation. This is something I believe all of us have struggled with throughout this project of understanding the general terms of aviation. So for the definition of flight and operations, a flight shall mean a single aircraft departure followed by a corresponding landing. A touch and go shall constitute as one landing and a takeoff and shall be counted as 2 operations. Each takeoff or landing shall constitute as 1 operation each. Operational volume. The phase 1 operation shall be limited to the operational levels described in the project narrative. Total operations shall not exceed that maximum hourly, daily, or weekly volumes presented to the town as part of the phase 1 approval without prior town review. Training and activity locations. All flight training activities, including pattern work, maneuvers, and practice approaches, shall be conducted primarily over undeveloped or sparsely developed areas to the maximum extent practicable. Training routes shall be designated to avoid repetitive overflight of developed residential areas. Minimum overflight altitudes, except as required as takeoff, landing, and safety-related maneuvers. Aircraft conducting training operations shall maintain a minimum altitude over developed areas sufficient to minimize noise impacts. Relative low altitude training maneuvers over developed areas are prohibited. Traffic pattern management. Standard traffic patterns shall be utilized and oriented to direct aircraft over undeveloped land wherever feasible. Deviations from established patterns for training purposes shall be limited and conducted in a manner that minimizes impacts to developed areas. Hours of operation. Airfield operations shall be limited to the hours of 5:30 to should be 11:30. This was a typo as part of the staff report. That was their part of their application. That 11:30, and then it's going to be in conjunction with that breakdown that the applicant shared as part of the table between the hours, the 5%, with the bulk of it being in that, the 5% between 5:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. With the training activity primarily during the early morning, and then reduced relatively, and shall avoid repetitive pattern work to the extent practical. Operational distribution by time of day. The development agreement shall identify anticipated ranges of flight activities by time period, including early morning, daytime, evening, and late afternoon evening operations. The intent of this provision is to ensure that the highest concentration of training flights occurs during daytime hours. Changes to any changes to the operational profile, any material changes to aircraft type, training methodology, flight paths, operational intensity, hours of operation that may increase noise or overflight impact shall require prior written notice, ultimately approval by the town. Compliance and coordination. All aviation operations shall comply with applicable FAA requirements. Compliance with FAA regulations shall not preclude the town from enforcing the agreed upon operational limitations and mitigation measures established within this development agreement. The development agreement shall strictly limit all uses authorized under the conditional use permit to phase 1 airfield only, as depicted in the master site plan dated at the time of application, November 3rd, 2025. No buildings, facilities, infrastructures, or operations associated with phase 2, 3, or 4 may occur unless a separate development agreement for applicable phases has been reviewed and approved by town council. The development agreement shall prohibit the establishment of any tenant, subtenant, or use associated with later phases of development without prior town council approval. This includes, but is not limited to, research facilities, manufacturing uses, commercial spaces, fixed space operator services, restaurants, or museums. The development agreement shall require that all non-aviation lighting comply with town's outdoor lighting and dark sky standards, including shielding, color, temperature, and intensity limits. Aviation lighting required by FAA may be permitted but shall be limited to the minimum necessary for safe operations and shall not expand beyond the FAA requirements. The development agreement shall require coordination with Arizona Game and Fish Department prior to construction activity to address wildlife movement, lighting impacts, and vegetation clearing times consistent with the department's review, comments, and recommended best management practices. The development agreement shall require the provision of on-site fire safety equipment for phase 1 consistent with the CAFMA requirements. For any later phases involving buildings, expanded staffing, or increasing operational activity, the development agreement shall require private or on-site security or other mitigation measures sufficient to ensure no increased demand is placed on the Chino Valley Police Department. The development agreement shall expressly prohibit use of the property under the conditional use permit beyond phase 1 airfield improvements unless expanded through subsequent development agreements approved by town council. The development agreement shall require coordination with the Arizona State Land Department regarding any airspace, height, lighting, or operational impacts affecting the adjacent state trust land, which I believe is already in process. If airfield operations create conditions requiring a navigation easement or similar restriction on state trust land, the development agreement shall require that such easement be obtained directly from state land prior to the commencement of any operation or any expansion triggering the requirement. The development agreement shall require the applicant to obtain all town, county, state, and federal permits necessary for construction and operation of phase 1 airfield. No building permits, grading permits, utility permits, or other development improvements shall be issued for any improvements within phase 2, 3, or 4 unless a development agreement applicable to that phase has been approved by the town council. The development agreement shall require ongoing coordination with the Chino Valley Police Department prior to construction and throughout operations regarding the site security plans and enforcement measures appropriate to the scale and nature of the approved use. The development agreement shall require the applicant to provide a semi-annual reports or presentations to town council summarizing airfield operations, including total operations by time of day, compliance with development agreement provisions, development status, and any proposed changes to the facility or activities. And then from Public Works point of view, Steve Sullivan, our town engineer, the applicant shall provide a traffic impact statement, TIS, for phase 1, which they have already done. and was included in your staff report. A development agreement for the subsequent phases will require full traffic impact analysis and address potential impacts, improvements, potential right-of-way dedications, and maintenance of roadways. Okay, so staff recommendations tonight. So you have two items. You're recommending, you hold a public hearing. And then 2, forward a recommendation to town council for the zone change ZC 2025-03, subject to the staff report and information provided during this hearing. And then make a subsequent motion, forward a recommendation to town council for CUP 2025-05, subject to the staff report and information provided during this hearing and the conditions of approval. Favorite part here, questions, discussions, and in the public hearing.
Thank you for being a good reader. All right, so who's got questions? Commissioner Zamudio?
I have quite a few. Can you hear me? Is it on?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, that's good. I have actually quite a few for staff here, but I guess I'll start from the first one. I know that you currently, let me riddle, are at Prescott Airport. Is this going to be in addition to being at Prescott Airport?
Yes.
What?
It will be? Okay.
Okay. Should we wait for some of these questions?
Have the public go first?
Yeah,
what I'm
well,
thinking.
because we haven't, Embry-Riddle's given their presentation. The questions it will be straight for staff, not at this point, not for
Yeah, I think the staff, the
anybody
public
else.
should go first.
So let's move forward. Anybody have more questions for town staff? Vice Chair Pathak.
I have a couple of questions. Well, I think we discussed these. The development agreement for phase 2, 3, 4, is that going to be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation?
It can be if that is a requirement of, or an ask from the Planning Commission.
I would like to see that.
Okay.
And then, again, the definition of flight and operation, what you presented sounded like they were exactly the same thing.
Okay, so we need to make sure we iron that out.
And I'm seeing a flight will have a number of operations.
Within
Because if you count a flight and an operation as the same as to a touch and go is a flight as well as an operation, that doesn't get a lot of work done
fair enough.
for Embry-Riddle. I would also like to see what the new entry route for runway 21 is on the airport traffic pattern. We were told that the one shown is not the one that will be used, but there's a new one, and I'd like to know what that is. Your readings that you had between 45 and 62 decibels, just for education of the public and to remind us that know what decibels are, 45 to 62 would be something like normal speech.
Correct. So the high end.
I think the 62, 65 is normal speech, if I remember correctly.
There was a chart up earlier.
Yeah, I have a great metric here that I can.
Okay.
Sorry, if you want to, well, I look this up here. If you would like to, had other questions, we can answer those as we are looking through this.
Anything else, Gary?
Well, yeah, I'll wait.
Did you have a slide?
Yeah, I have two other items. They're kind of minor.
Yeah.
When you were discussing the change in operation, it said notification to town council. I think the town should have an approval process for the change.
For the change?
Yeah.
For any sort of change?
And then you mentioned semi-annual reporting as to staying within the parameters of the development agreement. I would like to see that report more frequent. And I don't know if it should be quarterly or monthly. I know they have to keep logs of what they're doing for flights and everything, so the data is there. It's just, do you want it reported monthly or quarterly? And on the staff report, I had a question about fueling operations. Will there be fueling operations at that airline?
Not at
airport?
phase one.
Pardon?
Not at phase one.
Not at phase one. Okay, and in this report, it also says the applicant anticipates providing private on-site security. So that should be firmer in the development agreement so that the town doesn't have a financial impact on it. I should say negative financial impact. I think the airport itself would probably be positive. And I couldn't find where the minimum altitude over developed areas was, or what it is.
Embry addressed that.
Yeah, Emery Riddle will give us that one. Yeah, and then the deer pronghorn. Their fawning season is between April 1 and June 30. And I know it's going to take a while to get the approval. If this goes through, they're going to need the approval, permitting, plans. Is there some way of making sure that the time frame, and I'm not saying between April 1 and June 30 because that's a large window, but the peak fawning occurs in the middle of May according to the state. So there is some way to lessen the construction activities so that the pronghorn have a chance? I mean, that's a consideration. I don't know if we can mandate something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty well done with the staff report. Thank you, Will.
I have one.
Go ahead.
On Gary's note, there are reports of how many operations they have in that thing. Is there any mechanism for repercussion if they go over?
In the development agreement, yes, there can be.
There can be.
Yes,
Would that include a fine? Would that include now making a contract, or?
so it'd have to, however,
I-
that would want to be shaped ultimately.
I guess the question would be more in line as to if the development agreement is violated by either the town or or Emery Riddle, what are the ramifications?
So that would be something that,
Yeah, that would be written in the development agreement. when
Okay,
we-
but it will be addressed.
Absolutely.
Good.
That was
Anybody
it
else?
for that.
oh boy.
Some of this Vice Chair Pasiak's gone over. The definition for flight was a little bit vague. I mean, it wasn't vague, but you're combining flight with conditions or whatever. And it was just operations. It was a little confusing. I'd like to see something stipulated that no rotary wing or jet aircraft would be allowed ever, and to limit the size of the aircraft to the Cessna and the twin engine 175 and the twin engine Diamond, or aircraft that have the same volume requirements or noise footprint in the same class of aircraft and noise footprint. That's a good one. The use permit should have a time frame established for review to mitigate any issues that appear during the first year of operation, where we can go back and say, well, this something popped up here that we didn't consider, or this thing we did consider is really not proving out well. So we probably should have something like that in it.
Mr. Chair, does that take the form of a review after a year?
That would probably be a very wise thing to do. We sit down, review, and just say, okay, what's working, what's not working.
Okay.
Because this is a very complicated setup here. P&Z, it's my belief that P&Z should have a study session at every development agreement phase to provide additional layer of oversight, comments, and questions to deliver to the county council and to the public for the public meeting for action. In other words, we should sit down and even possibly have the town council in a study session and ask questions and find out information in a study session for each phase of development, starting with development phase 1 and going forward, just so we're providing an extra layer of comments. The zoning commission are not elected, so their view of things is a little different than town council, and no disrespect to either party, it's just the difference between a Ford and a Chevy. So I think it's wise to have that extra layer of oversight. The CUP needs to have a mechanism to deal with road improvements, which that was a little bit discussed, during construction and continuing road maintenance going forward. Equipment's going to be out there. That's a large portion of any road construction job is mobilization. And I'm repeating myself a bit. The CUP must contain a mechanism to limit runway length to avoid possible future jet or larger aircraft. Just saying we can't have larger aircraft or helicopters or jets is fine, but the runway shouldn't be any longer than the 5,000 feet and the proposed extended 2,000 feet. Am I correct there?
1,000.
For the twin engine aircraft?
1,000.
1,000, thank you. Another thing, any and all CAFMA coverage expenses for the airstrip will need to be covered by Embry-Riddle and the Perkins family, starting with the minimal fire protection needed at the start. And on any future development and future phases, CAFMA tax funds should not be used for any development of this system out there. In other words, this is a development, the developer should pay for the infrastructure things that have to be done out there, and the rest of us, including the Perkinses, I'm sure, are paying tons of tax money to CAFMA as it is. So, let's see, where was I at here? Any vertical structure built in any phase will trigger a CAFMA fire station, again, built at the owner or leaseholder's expense, so that anything that comes out of the ground more than a landing light and a flag and a windsock should trigger a fire station out there. Okay, I wrote this note but found it in the wordage. There is a 8-foot tall fence around the facility to protect wildlife and keeping the livestock off the runways. So that question got answered. The airstrip should remain a private airfield and not be expanded in the future to a public airfield or airport. That should be in there.
That is the plan, sir.
Pardon me?
That is the plan. It'll stay in the family.
Thank you. And I'll be happy to let you answer some of these questions later on. I appreciate your comment. Thank you. Noise reduction and mitigation is a top priority for this project. Hours of flight operations, volume of flights, etc. must reflect this concern. I saw the schedule 5:30 to 11. Maybe we could make that 6 days a week and from possibly 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. But I also realized that 1 in 7 days you're down for weather or whatever. But as a regular schedule, maybe Sundays could be reserved for a later start and an earlier finish. Another thing, this is just throwing a wild idea out there. The town is obligated to the Perkins family ranch with a water commitment because they agreed to be annexed into the town, and it's pretty onerous against the town of Chino Valley for the water, which I'm not even sure we can meet that obligation if we wanted to. maybe the Perkins Ranch folks would consider some relief in that portion.
We would.
Thank you. Let's see, what else we got here? Oh, Vice Chair Pasiak brought that up, and I also, Commissioner possibly did too. What is the altitude that they're talking about as far as the orbits? I know in the demonstration we saw yesterday, Garchin Institute's around 5,000 feet above sea level, give or take several hundred feet. And it appeared that the orbits that were conducted yesterday, most of the time, at least in front of the Buddhist Institute, was at least 500 to possibly 1,000 feet higher. So we'd like to get some more definition on exactly what that means. Let's see. Also, this was already brought up as well, we need to have some sort of monitoring of the flights and some kind of auditing to verify compliance, and that should not be on the town's expense. We also should think about setting a time limit on the CUP so that future development does move forward. Phase 1 does not create any monetary benefit to the town of Chino Valley, possibly beyond fixing portions of Perkinsville Road, some construction taxes. So the town of Chino Valley needs more sales tax and permit fees to continue to operate. So that needs to be a consideration as well. At that point, I ran out of steam. So the next step here, we can give the staff, I think we should move to public comments so we can get their questions before everybody decides to respond to avoid duplicating things. So unless somebody's got a horrible problem with that, I think that's the next step. So, okay, how many people here have been to a zoning meeting in the last 2 or 3 years? Okay, so there's a standard speech. Everybody is going to be given a chance to speak. You're going to get 3 minutes to talk about what this particular item is about. At the end of 3 minutes, if you're still not finished, depending on where I think you're at in finishing, I may ask you to wrap it up quickly, or I may just say, please stop, you've used up your time and you need to step down. There's a lot of people that are waiting in here and patiently outside to have their say about this project. I would also ask that you be polite. We're all American citizens, we're all grown-ups, we all vote if we want to, and so we'll all get our say here. But if you're not polite, I'm going to ask you to step down. I won't tolerate any attacks on anybody personally. I won't tolerate any comments, negative comments, and please do not applaud or we are never going to get home tonight. So you can congratulate each other outside at the job you did. When you step up to the podium, I have these cards. So these cards have been shuffled like a deck of cards, so nobody got any favoritism. The person that shuffled them didn't have long sleeves, so I'm pretty sure we're good. I would also like to say when you step up to the podium, please state your name. Also, please state if you're a Chino Valley resident, if I ask that, because maybe some of these haven't had that question checked. Just because you're not a resident doesn't mean what you say is not important. I keep a good list of questions and comments so that when we get through the public portion of the meeting, I can go back and get some kind of a tally of where we're at, but also to get your questions asked and answered, which is the most important thing. So with that, I'm going to ask the first person to step up. And, yes, sir. Oh, yeah, thank you. See, he knows more than I do. And it's my speech. So if you agree with the person that's spoken before you, or even several times before you, because I'm going to suspicion that a fair portion of everybody that speaks tonight is not gonna want this project to go forward, which is okay to have your opinion on that. But please, if that's just all you got to say when you get up there, just please come up and say, I concur with all the people that's in favor or not in favor, unless you have something constructive you would like to add so that we can gather more information to make a good decision. Am I good? All right. We're gonna do that, Gary, after the public. All right, so the first person that I have here is, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. I'm pretty good about names that come from different parts of the world. I'll flub them up as good as anybody. Sherry Klein, would you please step forward? You have 3 minutes. State your name when you step up to the podium. Jerry Ann, would you please hit the clock when she steps up?
Hi, I'm Sherry Klein, and I live out in Bright Star. I bought my house new 13 years ago, and I wanted a smaller house after having cancer and completing radiation. And I have no living family. My family was killed 22 years ago, so I have no one to really help me. Well, when I moved here, I had a handyman help me. He and his friend, and he since died. And I thought, well, this is going to be my last house. So I thought I'm going to make it how it's going to be nice for me. Well, I put in $85,000 in upgrades on the house. And like security screens for each window. There's $1,100 to $1,300 each window. Security screen on the front door. Security on the back slider. The window film on all the windows that keep the glass from breaking. And if someone decides to break in the house, and the light fixtures were from a House of Lights, all the doorknobs, 2 lever knobs, Televera wall plate switches there, and the ones where you put the plug in. Those are like $35 each. New bathroom custom cabinets with siltstone on them, and I did the kitchen the same way with the backsplash on. New faucets, a 10 by 12 tough shed, the 12 by 12 American bandstand gazebo, tiles floors throughout the house. That's just the beginning of the list. If that airport strip is built, I would probably have to sell this house, and it wouldn't go any higher than someone who didn't do any upgrades, because they just want all that stuff for free. And if I stay there, I will have the noise and pollution of the house, of the airplanes. There's also the danger if the students stop their engine and they can't get it restarted, they crash and usually burn. There was one a couple weeks ago, a Cessna that crashed, killed a man and his wife and 2 kids. And many times several of the homes are affected. So there's no reason for my house, which has been here 12 plus years, to have to put up with this noise inconvenience of an airport that hasn't even been built yet. So vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gary Bowers.
Good morning, Mayor, council members, and neighbors. My name is Gary Bowers. I live in Mingus Meadows in the county at the north end of Coyote Springs Road and very close to this project. I want to be clear at the outset, this is not an argument against aviation, education, or Embry-Riddle as an institution. This is about location, scale, and impact, and whether this project is appropriate for this community. The proposal before you requests a zoning change for 390 acres of land currently designated residential and less than 3 miles from Mingus Meadows and other nearby communities. The proposal seeks to build a 5,000-foot private flight training airport. That is not a small airstrip. It is a $15 million multi-phase commercial training facility operating from 5:30 in the morning to 11 at night with up to 50 or more flights per day. This is a fundamental change to the character of this area. Training airports are not quiet. Repeated takeoffs, landings, touch-and-go patterns, and low-altitude flight paths are very different from occasional recreational aviation. Noise is not an inconvenience. It is and has a daily cumulative impact on residents, retirees, families, wildlife, and property values. Traffic and safety must also be addressed honestly. Increased vehicle traffic on Perkinsville Road, fuel delivery, different from emergency response capacity, and all safety over the residential and recreational areas are not minor considerations. Once zoning is changed and infrastructure is built, those impacts are permanent. Perhaps most concerning is the pace of this proposal. Decisions are moving quickly, yet many nearby residents are only now learning about the scope of what is being proposed. Meaningful public input requires time, transparency, and full disclosure, not after approval is granted, but before. Zoning is just for a reason. When land designated for residential use is converted to industrial aviation use, it sets a precedent that cannot be undone. This is not simply one project. It is a long-term land use decision that will shape this area for decades. I respectfully ask the council to slow this process down, require a comprehensive noise and safety impact study, and seriously consider whether the flight training airport belongs this close to established communities and treasured rural outdoor areas like Mingus Meadows and others. Growth should be smart, development should be compatible, and residents deserve to be heard before the irreversible decisions are made. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Just as a reminder, we're the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're not the town council. We're foolish enough to volunteer. We don't get elected. Christina Lundberg.
Good evening. My name is Christina Lundberg. I'm the executive director of the Garchin Buddhist Institute in Chino Valley. For nearly 30 years, our 100-acre sanctuary has overlooked this magnificent valley and is located just 1.2 miles from the proposed airstrip. We are more than a local landmark. We are a global beacon of peace, serving thousands of people from 32 nations. To date, we have provided a sacred refuge for over 55,000 individuals seeking serenity. Beyond our mission, we are an economic engine for Chino Valley. We have invested over $5 million into our campus, comprised of 40 buildings, constructed with local labor. We continue to drive tourism, support local businesses, and the fire department. The proposed airstrip's economic benefit does not begin to match the established value the Institute brings to this community. This 30-year legacy is now under immediate threat. The proposed airport would not just be an annoyance, it would be a death knell for our sanctuary. The flyover demonstration yesterday proved that it wasn't even accurate. They flew 500 feet higher than what the actual elevation would be. The actual would be far worse, and no decibel readings were taken as previously stated tonight. With operations proposed from 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., 7 days a week, this constant noise would be like a permanent wasp nest overhead. This shatters this silence essential for meditation, which is both detrimental to our religious use and crippling to our economic viability. Furthermore, the environmental impact of lead toxins, aviation fuel emitted would threaten the health of the entire region, creating long-term health challenges. And we are in that 70% of the time flight pattern. I am also concerned by the lack of response to our invitation to council and committee members and Embry-Riddle representatives to visit the Institute. To understand the impact of this development, you must see what is at stake, especially since we have the most to lose. It's difficult to reconcile Embry-Riddle's public commitment to spiritual diversity with its current actions. The university's website still highlights our institute as a local place of worship and a
Christina?
spiritual resource.
Can you wrap it up for us, please?
How can a university promote the institute as a resource while simultaneously being the cause of its destruction? This inconsistency threatens the inclusive values Embry-Riddle claims to uphold. We love this country and we support pilot training. Fortunately, we live in an enormous valley with viable alternate locations for the airstrip that would not destroy an established religious refuge or radically degrade the quality of life for thousands of residents. We firmly oppose this application and urge the committee to vote against this proposal. Finally, aviation is not the only beneficial use for this land. If this airfield is found incompatible, the Garchin Buddhist Institute is prepared to potentially purchase the property from Perkins Ranch to preserve it for uses consistent with the quiet, rural character of Chino Valley. Thank you for your time and for your careful consideration this evening.
No applause, please. Thank you. Okay, Elizabeth Prather.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Prather. I'm the general manager at the Garchin Buddhist Institute. I've been coming to the Garchin Institute as a community member for 20 years to take advantage of the peace and quiet, the tranquility of the center, to engage in meditation, practices, and enjoy the U.S. and international community that comes to visit there. Meditation requires quiet outer conditions, which are so hard to find in this world. The wilderness surrounding the Institute brings us closer to nature as well, another great catalyst for spiritual growth. I was able to engage in a 3-year silent meditation retreat at the Institute. I can truly tell you that any noise from an airport in the valley would make that type of spiritual endeavor impossible. We currently have a group of people in their 2nd year of their 3-year retreat at the center right now. As general manager for the past 3 years, I have seen so many people feel the power and blessings of that land in the center, including local people from Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, and Phoenix and beyond. Just today, we had 7 local people visit. Putting in this airstrip would create noise and air pollution, which would destroy the peace and quiet that is the hallmark of this sacred land that benefits so many. I beg you not to approve this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Debbie Strader.
Hello, committee. I'm 4th generation Perkins family. Perkins family came here and settled in 1900. That's how long we've been here. Tonight I really wanted to talk about my dad, Tom Perkins. And he's always been a good steward of the land. Our whole family has. We're going now currently on our 6th generation running the ranch, 5th and 6th together. And that'll continue. But my dad, Tom, was approached by Chino mayor in 1999 and wanted us to come into the town, to be annexed into the town. And I think most of us in the family thought, why should we do that? I mean, we're fine in the county. And Dad said no. He said, we've always been involved in Chino, and Chino's our home. We need to be annexed into Chino, and any development, should there be any, needs to be, needs for Chino to see that gain. So, in 2000, we were annexed into Chino. I think that Dad today would see that joining with Embry-Riddle would be very beneficial to the town. This airstrip is on the very eastern edge of the town. It's not really that close to any developments at all. And the majority of the ranch will still be intact for the pronghorn and the cows and all the other animals. That's about all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Alan Scheibel.
My name is Alan Scheibel. I live at 4001 East Perkinsville Road. I support this decision here, or your decision, sorry. I am the closest house living in the city of Chino Valley. So I do support this proposition.
Thank you, sir. Joanne Savage.
My name is Joanne Savage, and I live in the Bright Start community. It's my understanding that the town council and this planning commission is considering a proposal to put in the Embry-Riddle airstrip on Perkinsville Road in a location which will be about 4 miles east of the Bright Star community, which is where my home is. There is substantial evidence this will lower the value of our home, not to mention an increase in the noise and environmental pollution that will come with airplanes coming and going to the airstrip. There is a rare but possible potential for the airline to crash into a home. It's my understanding that the land is currently zoned residential 2-acre minimum, and there are some arguments that if the land is developed that it will increase traffic. The airstrip and what I understand are future research and manufacturing business anticipated for the area. If rezoned, it will increase traffic. So that is an invalid opinion, invalid reason in my opinion. There is also arguments that this will increase available jobs for Chino Valley residents. I imagine that Embry-Riddle has existing employees that live in the Prescott area. It's doubtful that existing employees will quit because they have an additional 5 to 10 mile drive to work. I would venture to guess the majority of the people here in Chino Valley primarily purchase their property or housing intentionally away from the built-up areas to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city of Prescott and Prescott Valley. If a person purchases property near an airport, they should expect to have increased air traffic and noise over time, whereas those of us who prefer the rural atmosphere and surroundings expect it to stay rural with less noise. While it may make sense to Embry-Riddle, it is entirely unfair to those of us who moved to Chino Valley to be away from the built-up area and airport. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Kendall Magnuson.
Hi, my name is Kendall Magnuson, and I'm a volunteer at Garchin Buddhist Institute, so for now that's my residence. I just wanted to speak to the very, very precious commodity that Chino Valley has, which it advertises on the Chino Valley website, which is peace. Come to Chino Valley and experience peace and expansive vistas and starry night skies, and that we take our development ideas and take that into consideration for Chino Valley. And that is part of the reason why Garchin Buddhist Institute came to Chino Valley, because of its peace, its peaceful environment, and its qualities of solitude and freedom to express. And one of the things that Garchin Buddhist Institute does is it takes that opportunity of peace and quiet to allow people to discover the nature of their own minds, which is love and divinity. And everybody is welcome to come to Garchin Buddhist Institute. It's not just a Buddhist place, it's a place for everybody. And so we encourage everyone to come there. I understand that there's another flyover on January 17th. Please come and experience that at the Garchin Buddhist Institute. It will blow your mind. I was there yesterday during the demonstration, for which we got 2 hours notice. So maybe Garchin Buddhist Institute is being considered in this plan, but certainly not consulted or included in the process. I was watching the planes come and go. You might have seen that there's 20 an hour they're supposed to come. That's 5 minutes per flight. And if you think of a flight coming towards you and going away from you, it takes about 5 minutes for the sound to come into full strength and to fade back away. So you never really get a break. And while I was watching those planes, I decided to walk around the Institute and see.
You need to face this way for the
While
camera.
I was walking around, while I was watching the planes, I decided to walk around the Institute to see just how it felt in general to have these planes flying. And what I noticed is that the flight path that was being operated flies directly over the Institute and around it. It's like we're being attacked. That's how it felt to my nervous system, to my ears. I don't care what the decibel readings were saying. I can tell you as a human being experiencing that, it was like a lawn mower or a leaf blower in my ears all the time. It definitely changed the environment and is quite stressful. Please do not approve this. At the very least, please postpone and do a lot more research and study that we can all participate in. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Major.
My name is Lynn Major. I'm also a Perkins, and I just want to say I highly support this project. I think it will be a very good benefit for the town of Chino Valley financially, and looking at the roads and everything internally, I think we need some finance coming into Chino to help support the roadways. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Cole.
Good evening, my name is Peter Cole. To keep this brief, I'm going to concur with everything that's been said in opposition to this proposal. But I will add that there has been flight training already going on at the Cottonwood Municipal Airport, and it's been a point of contention for nearby residents, and they say that the noise has eroded their peace and enjoyment of their home. So I asked the Planning and Zoning Commission to weigh this decision very carefully and consider the unnecessary impact of choosing this site. Surely there are other reasonable options for an alternative site that would be far less intrusive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being concise as well. Danny Major.
Yes, I'm also in favor of the airport out there. One of the things that I see is more noise than could possibly be these airplanes. Is these side-by-sides that run up and down Perkinsville Road, the motorcycles going twice as fast as what they need to, and I'm sure that affects the people on the far east side of the town also. I run cattle just starting about 2 miles southwest of the airport all the way to the Prescott Airport. And every day I'm out there with the cattle. I run cattle at the end of the airport at Prescott. I've leased that ranch for 20 years. And I watch stop and goes all the time out there, one after another. It's very little sound really with the smaller aircraft. We work cattle out there all the time. We don't hardly hear any noise at all until one of the bigger planes come over, like the United flight from Denver, and that's right in the pathway over, and the bigger jets that land there at the airport. That's the only noise I hear out there. They don't disturb my cattle, so I think the noise issue is a moot point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jason Kinkila. I might have messed that up.
Hello, my name's Jason Kinkella. I'm from...
Say that again, would you?
Jason Kinkella.
Kinkella, okay, thank you.
From Paulden, Arizona, and I am for the airstrip. Embry-Riddle brings a lot of employment to the area, not just Prescott, but Chino and everywhere around here. It would be beneficial to that. As far as Perkinsville Road goes, it's in need of a lot of improvements, and I think that would be phase 2, I believe, that they were talking about, to improve the roads. Would be highly beneficial to everybody, and also I don't know what I'm going to say.
Take your time, you're good.
I'm just for the project. It should bring a lot to this area, and as far as the noise, very little noise comes from airplanes. And as far as the danger of an airplane landing on somebody's house, you're more apt to get in a car wreck by far. So, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Alexandra Keating.
She left already.
She did? Okay. Shirley Simons.
Yes, my name is Shirley Simmons. I live in the Bright Star community, and I concur with...
Ma'am, could you pull that microphone down closer to you, please? The folks at home won't be able to hear you.
I concur with the opposition of the airstrip. Everyone said what I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got your comment, and it's got the same word after it everybody else did. Zoe White.
Hi, my name is Zoe White. I'm Thomas Perkins' daughter, and I go to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and I live there as well. I'm speaking on behalf of most of my people at Embry-Riddle. We're all for the airstrip, and Alexandra Keating, Alexandra that left before, she is not a Buddhist, but she went to Buddhist Academy in Hawaii. And I sort of want to speak on her behalf. She does not agree with what some of the things that a lot of the Buddhists have been coming up here and saying. She says that people should find the peace within themselves and not be so affected by the outside factors. And also, whenever people say like flying planes around them sound like hornets, I think it would be beneficial to view them as people and not like bugs, because we're learning up there. It's not just like, it's not bugs, we're learning. And I think it would be very enriching to have people accept that.
Thank you. Pardon me for being quiet, I'm a slow writer. Okay, Matt Beal.
All right, good evening, Chair, Vice Chair. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Matt Beal. I live here in Chino Valley on the east side near Perkinsville Road. I'm a pilot currently flying at a Preston Regional Airport, so I experience aviation growth and its impacts firsthand. I also own and operate several successful businesses, have experience working in public-private partnerships, where long-term community protection depends entirely on how agreements are structured from the beginning. I understand Embry-Riddle has proposed private ownership of Chino Valley on land owned by the Perkins family under a long-term lease. I want to be clear up front, I am not opposed to aviation. I don't disagree with the residents who will speak tonight about the noise, traffic, and growth concerns. Those concerns are valid. That said, I also want to be realistic. I believe the city may approve this project in some form regardless, and if that's the case, my goal tonight is not to stop it. It is to make sure Chino Valley is protected from day one, not trying to regain control years from now after a private facility is already operating. That's why I'm asking the council to, or the commission, excuse me, apologize, to consider a city-governed municipal airport structure, even if the land itself remains privately owned by the Perkins family under a long-term ground lease. Across the country, many municipal airports operate privately owned land through long-term leases, while city owns and governs the airport operations. In that structure, the Perkins family retains land ownership, Embry-Riddle remains a long-term tenant, and the city retains operational authority. That authority will allow the city to establish and enforce rules of use, control who can land at the airport through published restrictions and notice to airmen, set noise abatement procedures, limited operating hours, approve or deny further expansion. Those tools are extremely difficult to recover once an airport is built and operating as a purely private facility. I also think it's important to talk about who this primarily serves. Embry-Riddle is a global university. A significant portion of its student population comes from outside Arizona and outside the United States. There is nothing wrong with that, but it means the operational impacts would be borne by Chino Valley residents, while many of the direct beneficiaries are not from this community. At the same time, I'll skip because I'm running out of time here. A city-governed airport framework answers that question now before it becomes a problem later. The CUP can state the airstrip shall operate under a city-approved governance framework that establishes municipal oversight of airport operations, including but not limited to the rules of use, operational limitations, and enforcement authority, regardless of underlying land ownership. To the residents who will speak against this project, I hear you. I don't disagree with you. My concern is that outright opposition may still result in approval, and the worst possible outcome would be a private airport with limited oversight and no long-term protections. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I ran out of my stack. I'm assuming you have more.
Not in the room, sir.
Are there any more outside?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm in the room. But not everybody was in the first phase. So I have a whole nother stack, but we wanted to invite people into the room.
Okay, so there's so many people in here that we can't invite any more in here according to the building code and the fire code. So if some people would volunteer to, having spoke your piece, let somebody else come in and speak their piece, that would be greatly appreciated. And also I want to compliment everyone on their patience and their politeness. What's that? Oh, yeah.
Fill out a card. Did you fill it out? What is your Oh, so you're in the second phase. Please stay.
Can we, is it possible to postpone the decision for another meeting? I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There might not work this one.
Great.
Oh, no. Last year's probably not.
Are we pretty well settled?
I keep hiding in my seat.
All you new folks that came in, did you hear the speech?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For you that shook your head no, be concise, be polite, don't be repetitive, and if you get nasty, I'll kick you out. Thanks, ma'am. Okay, Joy Pearlands. It's hard to read the writing. Are you at 3985 East Perkinsville Road? That would be you. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm married into the Perkins family. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
And my daughter attends Embry-Riddle. We looked at a lot of flight schools. They are by far the best. They're the #1 aviation school in the world, with campuses here, Daytona, and Singapore. And you talk about crashes like you're worried about your home values. I worry about my daughter. I want her the best school there is. And if you look at the facilities at Riddle, they are #1. Their safety is unparalleled. Furthermore, calling them WASPs, crippling, destructive, they degrade the quality of life. I respect that. I trained as a yoga instructor in a Buddhist area of Thailand. It was on a busy street, as were all the temples. I believe that enlightenment or meditation should come from within, regardless of external circumstances. If there was a wasp or an airplane in your face. Furthermore, my husband was in the military for 30 years. We retired in Fort Campbell, which if you saw the Venezuela situation, that was our guys. They fly right over our house. Chinooks, Blackhawks, C-130s, C-17s. I love it. It's a sound of freedom. It's all how you look at it. When I see the planes around Prescott and the property values, we would love to buy something for Zoe. Sorry, Dr. Witcher, the dorms are a bit cramped. There are $1 million properties on that airport. We can't afford it. So I have to believe that it would only increase the property values here. We would love to build a place here. We would love to build a hangar on the airport one day for our aviation business. Anything else? I love this community. Oh, the Buddhist Institute, they said there's 55,000 visitors. I would like to see what they're doing also for roadway improvements, not just our family. Thanks.
Thank you. Fred Ferguson.
What was the last name?
Ferguson. Fred Ferguson.
Stuck outside.
Thank you for your perseverance.
Well, thank you for the chance to talk. I'm Fred Ferguson, Chino Valley resident, live east of the end of 2 North, so pretty close to the airport that you're talking about. I'm a pilot, and everybody's been talking about the approach zones and the patterns and everything around the airport. But keep in mind that when students are training, they don't just do touch and goes. They do a lot of training besides touch and goes. And the FAA requirements for over congested residential area is 1,000 AGL, which means 1,000 above ground level. So the noise level that everybody's talking about, a lot of people are saying is no big deal. Certainly that's a personal thing, but I think a lot of people moved to Chino Valley because of the peace and quiet. I think they have the expectation to have that continued, and to throw an airport that people who don't like that noise are going to have to live with is not fair. You're changing the entire concept of why they bought their houses here to begin with. And I think that goes beyond the pale of what they deserve. And so I can understand people. The last lady talked about growing up in the military. I grew up in an Air Force base, or several Air Force bases. And they're loud, they're noisy. And if it doesn't bother you, fine. But if it does bother you, you have an expectation, I think, to expect you guys to take that into as much consideration as you can. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Boy, I'm going to mess this one up for sure. Helga Free and Sold. On Cool Ridge Way, the writing, I just couldn't pick it out. Sorry. If you would pronounce that correctly and spell it, I'd appreciate it.
My name is Helga Fernschild, Firnschchild. Maybe you couldn't read my writing. Okay, thank you. Should I speak? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I was waiting for you. I have been a Chino White for 25 years. I moved into Chino Valley in 2001. And I chose Chino Valley because I was in search of a small town environment and a rural lifestyle. One of the things that I looked for in moving here was a peaceful environment. And up until recently, I've been able to enjoy that. For some reason this past summer, the increase in Embry-Riddle's flight patterns have really affected my lifestyle, my ability to enjoy my outside space because of the noise. I started noticing the amount of flights that were going right over my house. And I started writing down just time frames and days of the week. I'll just give you a brief idea. This is on a Wednesday from 9:30 in the morning to 10:45 in the morning. 11 flights went over my house. On a Tuesday morning from 8:45 to 11 a.m., 13 planes went over my house. Thursday, 8:15 to noon, 14 planes flew over my house. It was at the point of being totally distracting me from anything that I wanted to do outside. And I came here, I invested everything I had to leave Phoenix, to come have that small town feel and have the peace and quiet that a rural lifestyle I anticipated would offer me. And I feel now that I'm being deprived of that. The noise issue, you can Google things, and noise is considered a public nuisance. Excessive or unreasonable noise is a public nuisance defined as something offensive to the senses or interfering with the comfortable enjoyment of life or property for a considerable number of people, and is regulated by state laws, local city county ordinances, often setting specific decibel limits and time restrictions. While noise is also recognized as a serious public health hazard, legal action usually addresses specific, disrupted, and persistent noise levels rather than general ambient sound. So my opinion of having this type of activity going on here.
Ma'am, your time is up. Would
Is
you
it?
mind
Yeah.
closing, please?
Is really creating a public nuisance, and there are legal steps that can be taken in the way of noise abatement actions. So I definitely oppose this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Rhonda Ceremony.
Hello, my name is Rhonda Ceremony, and I live on Fire Sky Lane in Chino. I have several concerns regarding the proposed project and zoning change. First is emergency services. At this time, CAFMA responds to fire and medical emergencies, or if CAFMA were to respond to fire and medical emergencies on the runway, it would take approximately 20 minutes, weather and road conditions permitting, until a fire station is constructed at the location. Emergency coverage would significantly be delayed in the town of Chino Valley. This means existing fire protection resources would be diverted away from Chino residents for extended period of time, requiring response units from other stations to backfill coverage. Additionally, approving a project like this will likely result in a future tax increase to the CAFMA Fire District to cover the cost of staffing, equipment, apparatus needed for a new station at the airfield without the voters getting a say. Embry-Riddle should pay for the station fully 100%. The second one is the type of business activity described in phase 2 and beyond cannot be supported without adequate infrastructure. Large water tanks alone are not sufficient for fire suppression at an airfield. Without a reliable water supply, businesses cannot meet fire code requirements, and insurance costs would be prohibited due to high ISO ratings. This raises serious questions about whether any commercial development could realistically occur. Additionally, it is unclear whether proposed septic systems would be adequate to handle the anticipated usage. Third is the road. There has been no clear explanation of who will be responsible for improvements to the Perkinsville Road, including graveling, chip sealing, or paving, especially since portions of that road are currently dirt. In conclusion, I do not believe this project provides any meaningful benefit to the town. It prioritizes interests of a limited group while placing financial, safety, and infrastructure burdens on surrounding residents and the community as a whole. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. William Knotts. William Knotts. See what she says. All right, we're going to set him aside. April Dernez.
My name is April Durnay.
Durnay, sorry.
That's okay. I am a resident of Chino Valley. I reside at 4 North and Arizona Way. Close enough to this proposed airfield to be directly affected. I think the whole town is going to be directly affected by this. So let me move forward into this. I agree with the noise problems. I already am having planes going over my home all hours of the day and night, and they do produce a noise level that's kind of irritating, and I can understand that, and I agree with it. I am a former employee of Embry-Riddle. I worked there for over 10 years. I'm retired from there. And I have to say, I do not believe that this should come to our community. We have no guarantees what phase 2 or phase 3 is actually going to bring to us. And I think that we really need to consider the people that are already here, have already invested their lives here. And I don't think that they should be disregarded for something that does not yet exist. I'm also a board member of the Chino Valley Equestrian Park. And I have to say that they also disagree with this being planned for our area. I don't understand truly why it's being put out there, but I believe that there could be some other accommodations made in some other ways to the airport that already exists. They talked about how there's not going to be a traffic pattern by the studying pilots, and that they'll be coming in by flight. And if I got that right, I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. If they're coming in, if they're being flown into the airport out here, then why are we even bothering? Does that make any sense to anybody else? It doesn't make any sense to me. So there will be a traffic pattern change. There will be development coming to this community, but I think we need to look at it more closely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Lisa Smith.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Smith. I live in Mingus Meadows, unincorporated Yavapai County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I would like to touch on the noise aspect in bullet 1 of the noise impact mitigation provided in the conditional use permit narrative. It states, the site for the airstrip was specifically chosen to ensure no noise-sensitive areas are impacted, and a 65 decibel contour reference is used. It's not that simple. This statement might lead someone to believe that a simple sound level reading kept at or below 65 decibels within 2,000 feet from the airport runway is within FAA standards. And along with the projected low number of operations, the airport does not reach the threshold requiring any mitigation. However, I assume this is a reference to Code of Federal Regulations Part 150, which established the day-night average sound level, DNL, as the FAA metric used for community noise impacts. For DNL computations, the decibel in 65 decibels is actually dBA, where A stands for the A-weighted measurement you actually have when adding together several factors, such as environment, day and time of the year, distance from the source, etc. By definition, DNL takes into account both the amount of noise for each aircraft operation as well as the total number of operations throughout the day. And it adds 10 decibels to each of those operations being measured at night. Nighttime being established as between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. As an example, there could be 100 events, say 100 takeoffs per day, each with a sound level exposure of 94.5 decibel dBA. This could still be within the so-called threshold of DNL 65, but the actual number of operations per day being projected for this airstrip well exceeds these numbers and would therefore probably require formal noise analysis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Also, I have some handouts.
If you would give them to that lady right over there, we'll take that under advisement. Somebody forgot to turn their cell phone on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Eric Roof.
He had to leave. He had to leave. He was a real student that had to leave.
He left. Okay. Annie Perkins.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. And the 80 people on Facebook watching at home cannot hear the speakers, so please speak up. My name is Annie Perkins, and I married into Stan, please not right now. I married into the Perkins family. I was formerly Annie Lane and served on planning and zoning and town council before. I want to speak in favor of history and this family. I know everyone is in favor of their personal property rights. I'm in favor of everybody's personal property rights. The Perkins family, this land has been theirs for over 100 years. So with that being said, I appreciate everyone who moved to Chino Valley for the rural aspect and the rural lifestyle. I don't know why my voice is shaking. It doesn't normally. I appreciate that, and I respect everybody's investment in the town. That does not outweigh the Perkins family investment in the community, in this town, in the land, in their products, in the family, in the generations, in everything. That we're talking 390 acres out of thousands. And this is what their legacy is. I read a comment online from someone who said they moved here 6 years ago and they wanted to build a legacy for their family. Well, not only is ranching the Perkins legacy, but this airstrip has been a dream for the family for generations. So this I am in favor of, not only as Annie Perkins, but also as just Annie, because it's their land. Personal property rights still mean something. It's their personal property. That's all there is to it, in my opinion. I said that 10 years ago. I say it today. I'm in favor of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Fred Deffenbaugh.
Can we put the map up here, the large one, the airstrip?
Am I getting to need it?
The larger one.
Okay, when are you quitting these there?
No, I mean, the whole area.
The whole area, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha,
that brings
gotcha.
up, Prescott. Well, the whole area, not just, you know, the acres. There you go. Well, the airspace between there and Prescott.
Okay, what is that? Okay.
I think there's
That one? Yeah, where's, that? Okay, good. Yeah, now, this circle right here, is this the 5 mile? Prescott?
The blue.
Blue is?
Yes.
Okay, the things I had concerning is when they leave this airspace and go into Prescott, it's Class D now, they want to go to Class C. And you gotta get permission to enter that airspace, so I was wondering where they're gonna hold to do that. Because to me, it almost looks like they gotta hold over Chino or over by Coyote Springs.
okay, just so everybody knows, we can't respond. So when I stare
No, I
at
was
you,
making a
I'm just
statement
waiting
that-
for you to
yeah.
finish. Nobody here can respond to your question yet. We'll
Okay.
get to it.
Well, I know it's preliminary and all that, but that was a concern, is just coming in here and going out. And then the other Fred that was up here too, when you're training, you gotta do turns around the point. And I'm a 20,000-hour pilot, and I've got ATPs, CFIs, and all that stuff. But the thing is, it's more than touch and go. It's gonna start doing other stuff, and I don't know where they train at. But I rent a hangar out at the airport, and I got kind of crowded out of there from all the traffic, so I'm real close on the list to go to Cottonwood. I'm gonna move my operation over there. So,
I'm writing your question down.
yeah, that's it. I know about the noise and all that. The noise doesn't bother me. I've been in aviation my whole life. It's just the fact that if they have to hold up, if they have to hold here or over there to get in the airspace, because you get 4 or 5 students, you gotta wait. And then if I bring a helicopter in,
Step up to the, you
300.
wanna step up to the mic, nobody can hear you.
Anyway, if I fly a helicopter or something in there, they make me go to 300 feet or enter the pattern, and then you gotta do the 360 for spacing and all that, so. And then I only train like for friends and stuff, but I do it in Cottonwood because it's such a mess here. You sit on the ground waiting and you're, you know, the students paying the money. So that's
Thank
all
you.
I got.
Appreciate the question. Excuse me. Chris Perone.
What's the flight pattern map up on the screen? Take off the night picture. It's good. No, yeah, that one is overweighted. That's fine. Good evening. We've been here before. My name is Chris Perone, and I'm here to speak about the proposed airport that is basically directly behind my home. If you see here on the map, the path is directly over my home. That's my property. They're coming in here. They're circling right back behind me.
You gotta come up to the microphone to talk. We got the spot where you're talking about.
Okay, their projected elevation, this will work good. Their downwind elevation is 5,924.57 feet. My elevation on my property is 4,996 feet. That puts them about 900 feet on approach right over my home at the rate of 20 to 30 per hour. They currently run about 70 flights per hour out of Prescott Airport, and it's planning on expanding. It's unacceptable. We will lose everything we moved to Antelope Meadows for. The peace, the quiet, the mountain views. I urge you to take a few things into account. I question everyone here. If this was happening over your home, how would you react? Can anyone on this board tell me again what Chino's Valley general plan is? This is in direct conflict with Chino Valley's general plan. The plan for Chino Valley was focusing on preserving its rural small town feeling, supporting sustainable growth, and providing a high quality of life through safety, community, and preserving its heritage. Also to protect expansive vistas, grasslands, starry skies, and agricultural equestrian traditions. This land is currently zoned residential AG2, I believe. If they want to sell their land and have homes built on it in 2-acre parcels, that's a lot better than an airport, especially coming over my house.
No comments, please.
If this does go through and it is passed through Chino Valley, I can guarantee you there will be multiple lawsuits against Chino Valley. I will be the first one on the list. We've been down this road before with solar. Let's not do this again. Let's protect the general plan for Chino Valley and the residents that are directly in that flight path. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Greg Calbaugh. That might be wrong.
It's close enough. My mom had trouble with it too.
I couldn't make out the last letter.
Kalbach.
Kalbach?
Kalbach.
Got it.
My name is Greg Kalbach. I'm a resident of Sedona, and I'm retired. I was in the insurance business, business insurance for over 40 years. A risk manager for a university, a broker for vice president for a large brokerage firm, a claims manager, and an underwriter. I think we all know it's easy to AI Google what the mental health and property values negative impact can be with this type of operation. So that's kind of a given. It's also a death knell to Garchett Institute. But from an insurance standpoint, insurance, the ISO, which is a rating organization, this type of risk is high risk in fire, pollution, and it's high risk in those impact areas. So fire rates are made by the ISO. So the ISO is going to, any underwriter gets their grips on this, they're going to have, they all pool, just like your car insurance is pooled. You know, your rates are high even though you're a good driver because it's because of your area. So the fire rates could go up because of this operation to trickle down into the business community and possibly into the private sector in fire rates. So you could see an increase in insurance costs because of its impact. I'm going to make it short and just say, just beware of short-term gain and long-term loss. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Laura Chan.
I said I wasn't going to do that this time. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Laura Chan, and I live in unincorporated Yavapai County. The flying community has been such an important part of my life. As a former United States Air Force flight nurse, spent a lot of time on a lot of airstrips. And we've owned a couple planes with my husband. And we just love flying. And we love that world. And I appreciate the need for quality pilot training. And I really value encouraging our new pilots, a new generation. However, the people and the communities are here first. The residential areas are here first. The Perkins Ranch Airfield location is not acceptable as it will negatively impact the quality of life for thousands of residents living along traffic patterns and in the vicinity of the airport, regardless of whether you call it an airstrip, airfield, or airport. Planes will take off and land. Planes are noisy and disruptive. For those people who said small planes don't make a lot of noise, they do. On Monday afternoon, I observed Embry-Riddle's demonstration flights from the Garchin Institute. This experience highlighted the detrimental impact this airstrip and Embry-Riddle's training activities would have for our community. I can't even imagine how loud it would be when the planes were actually flying at the proposed flight pattern. They would be so much closer than the Garchin Institute and the other residences. I wonder if that's why they didn't fly the proposed pattern altitude. Although the need for dedicated training airport for Embry-Riddle students is needed with the increase to 1,300 students, the proposed location is not the solution. Why bring all the known issues that have significantly impacted Cottonwood and Clarkdale to our area? There are other established airports nearby like Seligman and Baghdad. It is not our role to sacrifice our quality of life for their training needs and cost. We were here first. The Perkins Ranch Airfield rezone and cut package is incomplete as it does not address the proposal's negative impacts. While incomplete, I am urging the Planning and Zoning Commission to send to Town Council with the recommendation to not approve, since even a proper demonstration by Embry-Riddle would just result in an even greater negative impact and noise to what we saw on Monday. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Ken Chan.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ken Chan. I live in unincorporated Yavapai County. The leaders of Chino Valley are being asked to approve zoning change in CUP that will affect its future without being given all the information. I like to think it's kind of like first getting married and then after the fact discussing where you're going to live, whether it's open or closed, whether you even have a prenup. Now, my background is as a retired fire chief with operational authority at a major international airport and a law enforcement pilot, and it led me to ask a few questions. Well, let's look at the proposed number of flights. Well, we've projected 1,300 students that are required to fly 3 times a week. How many actual operations can we expect at the proposed airport? I'm sure it'll take a lot more than the roughly projected 50 takeoffs and landings each day that when you already plan on accommodating an additional 25 aircraft there at some point in phase 2. Now, do you really expect us to believe that the majority of operations at Cottonwood won't move over to the much closer projected project airport? We can already see the impact to the communities at Cottonwood and Clarkdale and vvair.org. How would this be different? Can you actually imagine that it would be different? The noise study from 2003 also never addresses the communities that you'll be overflying at less than 2,000 feet. Won't this exceed the 65 dB repeatedly? How about the Cathma Firehouse as proposed? Please understand that the cost of building a firehouse is negligible. Now, the cost of staffing, however, is significant, being well over $1 million each year in perpetuity. So are you actually, Embry-Riddle, asking the council to approve a tax increase for everyone in the fire district just to fund a private project? Let's talk about the potential income from industry. Are we supposed to believe that because of a small, uncontrolled runway, all of a sudden the aviation industry wants to make Chino Valley the hub of technological innovation? Wow, how does that happen? Well, why then wouldn't they consider Prescott that already has a Class D airport, firehouses, and infrastructure in place? Yesterday, Embry-Riddle conducted a flight demonstration that wasn't announced to the public. Questions. Why were you flying patterns to the landing to the north when the prevailing winds are clearly from the south? Since you couldn't land because there's no airstrip there, why didn't you demonstrate a low pass with the aircraft slowing to landing phase with flaps deployed, then going missed at 50 feet instead of orbiting at 1,000 feet while barely varying the throttle? Is that reflective of what happens around an airport? Absolutely not. Why didn't you fly the runway 21 left standard pattern that you show in your proposal? Was it all just a performance intentionally orchestrated to avoid showing council and staff and some of the actual impacts? Embry-Riddle, I'm sure that the multiple suits as a result of the project would create more headlines than news of your
time's
last
up. Finish
agreement
quickly,
with the
please.
military. But since you believe that there would be no hazard or impact to the communities, I'm sure you would be willing to indemnify the town of Chino Valley against any and all damages as a result of ARS
Mr. Chang,
1234 claims that were
finish
resolved.
up, please. Thank you.
I was, thank you.
And I mispronounced your name wrong. I'm sorry, Mr. Chan.
It's all right.
Lee Divelbliss. Divelbliss. Maybe I got it right the second time.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission. My name is Lee Divelbliss. I live in unincorporated Yavapai County, specifically at Antelope Meadows, at the end of Antelope Meadows. In fact, the approach for the airplane here at the very bottom near the checkerboards, where you see all the different little lines at the bottom of the screen, is showing the airplanes flying directly in front of my home that we purchased, or actually purchased the property about 5 years ago, and then built a home to be our retirement home. Of course, I had a speech prepared, but most people have already touched on all this stuff, so I'm just going to ignore that. But I want to talk real quick. I happen to be the president of the association at Antelope Meadows, and one of the primary things that the president or the board of the association is to do is to help protect property values. And one of the things with property values just drives me crazy is that government has so much authority over what we can do or cannot do with our property. But it's necessary. It's necessary so that you don't have people or individuals or a group of individuals create disturbances so that you cannot enjoy your property. And in this case, I believe this airfield, this proposed airfield, produces a nuisance for many people. Not only in Antelope Meadows, but Paquito Valley, Coyote Springs, the Haystack, as well as the one going, was it Bright Star, I think is what it was called. And if you look at state statute, what a nuisance is, it's very well defined and described there. I'm not going to read it. I have it on my phone, but I would encourage the commission to look at that and take a look at what that nuisance is and how that can be interpreted by individuals or group of individuals. And I believe that you approving this would be an error, and that you need to deny and push back and ask more questions and make sure. I also think that this map is unfair. The flight pattern was much closer to the houses when they were making this southwestern turn. It was actually flying over, the planes were actually flying over some of the houses there at that very edge of that property. With that, I'm going to yield my time, but I would like to say please deny this, push back, ask more questions, make good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Janelle Perkins.
Hi, everyone. I am a granddaughter of the matriarch of the family, and we've lived here my entire life. I lived on the ranch for most of my life, but recently moved out, and I live in right by the airport. I live right across from the golf course at Caddy Corner, and I've been a student who needs a lot of peace and quiet to study. I've been a student, and I still am. I'm in college for nursing, which is not easy, and so I do need a lot of peace and quiet to do studying and things of that nature. And I live directly next to the airport, and I've never had an issue. I've had new neighbors move in recently. They don't have any issue. My family bought the house there. There's never been a problem, and no one in the community that are close to the airport have ever said anything about the sound or it impeding what they have to do in their everyday life. There's lots of retirees there. There's lots of people who are just there to have a peaceful life, and they've never had an issue with the airport being there. I also would urge you to consider not only this generation that this airport would be good for, but the generations to come after, and what that would bring to people of my generation and Zoe's generation as well. So I am in support of the airport. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Silver Stapleton.
Good evening, gentlemen. Whoops. My name is Silver Stapleton. I live in unincorporated Yavapai County. Indulge me just a moment to quote the Chino Valley General Plan, which states, haven't heard anybody else talk about it this evening. Chino Valley is a peaceful rural community that supports recreation and regional tourism. We are committed, let me emphasize, we are committed to preserving our community's expansive vistas, endless grasslands, and starry night skies, while supporting limited and sustainable growth. Our proud agriculture and equestrian tradition makes Chino Valley a desirable place to build a future. And with the previous decisions of the council, it has done just that. I lived in Flagstaff and Phoenix when I was a young adult. I knew I'd come back to retire someday, and I did 7 years ago. I retired as a private investigator running my own business for more than 30 years. I worked long, hard hours, as many of us retirees here have. We've paid our dues to retire in this peaceful, I'm quoting, peaceful rural community that supports equestrian tradition. I settled here buying a home adjacent to state land. I specifically bought where I did, paying a bit more so I could ride my horse in open spaces. I have greatly enjoyed the ability to do so. My home would be one of the closest homes south of the proposed runway, apparently in the flight pattern, and I'm voicing my opposition. This project will affect and limit my riding and that of many other equestrians who live locally in a number of ways. When student pilots are practicing touch and go landings, not only will our riding area be limited because of proximity to runways, but I'm concerned about my safety, that my safety may be at risk while riding on my own property or even in my neighborhood because of overhead noise and motion of planes, which may or may not be at 1,000 feet as they approach my home. There do not seem to be any recent actual facts on altitude or noise as it pertains to specific neighborhood locations that may be affected. I hope you are adamant those facts need to be established before making a referral to council. Full throttle getting to altitude, possibly 100 to 150 times daily, causes me great concern for my safety, and I'm riding a young horse, as well as my general sense of peace and quiet. When noise impact studies were made in 2003 or even later in 2018, The surroundings were
Ma'am,
very different.
Ma'am, can you finish it up quickly, please?
I can. Let me make a statement in response to Annie and to those who were born Perkins. I wonder how many of the older Perkins who you inherited your property from would be in favor of this project. How would they have envisioned their legacy?
Okay, ma'am, we're done. Thank you. Donna Sheehan.
Hello, my name is Donna Sheehan. I live in Chino Valley. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And as soon as I get I'm sorry. If approved, Embry-Riddle flight students would be using this airstrip to practice touch and goes. I come from a community with a private airstrip where my husband and I lived for 23 years. He was instrumental in obtaining a renewal of the conditional use permit for the airport. One of the things that was strictly prohibited was the practice of pilots doing touch and goes because of the proximity of homes and the inherent danger that that represented. These resident pilots were experienced, some of them flying for major airlines. One of the most dangerous operations is the touch and go procedure, and in my opinion, the danger to the surrounding environment is heightened by the inexperience of student pilots. I'm also concerned this would be an uncontrolled airport with students not having a tower to guide them. We lived near the Prescott Regional Airport for 3 years by choice. The flight training noise is awful. Between Embry-Riddle and the helicopter flight schools, it is nonstop, starting in the early morning until late evening. I was very glad to move from there. We sold our home on Wineglass Drive after many months on the market with a modest profit, barely enough to pay our realtor. Yes, I'm concerned about the noise and disruption of life as we know it. I'm more concerned about safety, as most people in the aviation community are. I believe this airfield would be unsafe. I think the Perkins family should be able to do with their land what they please, but not at the detriment of their neighbors. I am very sympathetic to their dilemma. I urge all that have views either similar to mine or in direct opposition to it to express your feelings. It is only by listening to all views that our city leaders will be able to make a decision that benefits the majority of their constituents. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Steve Willing.
My name is Steve Willing. I'm a resident of Prescott Valley. Thank you for taking our comments. In the agendas and minutes posted on the town website for this hearing, one thing that comes up frequently is that the number of flight operations is an average of 50 per day. For example, it is stated in the CUP findings that, quote, flight operations averaging 50 daily are minimal and specifically designed to be compatible with a rural environment. The project avoids the high volume traffic and continuous activity that would be incompatible with a retreat center or a luxury rural residential community. So it is acknowledged that a high volume of traffic would be incompatible with existing developments and homes, such as the Garchin Institute and Haystack Ranches. But it gives the assurance that the proposed average of only 50 operations per day would not be incompatible. This number is also used to determine that no formal noise study should be required, since 50 operations per day is below the FAA threshold. However, the 50 operations per day are referred to elsewhere in the same documents as merely the initial number. And it's stated that under phase 2, if approved, there's an anticipated maximum of 40 operations per hour. That would be a huge increase in operations if sustained for more than one out of the 18 daily hours of operation proposed. If the number of operations is to be significantly increased at a later date, that would greatly increase the impact on existing properties, and it would also invalidate the reasoning for avoiding a formal noise study. So if a conditional use permit is granted, it should be made explicit that the proposed average of 50 operations per day is never to be increased in the future. And if that number is expected to be increased, then a formal noise study should be required before the zoning change is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nicholas Borgia. Nicholas Borgia. K. Greg Murray.
Hi, thanks for giving everybody the opportunity to address the commission today. I'm Greg Murray, and I'm representing the Central Arizona Wildlife Alliance. I'm a conservation biologist and ecologist by training, and I'm here today to speak against the proposal to construct this airport. At the outset, CAWA, our organization, believes that this is not a good idea for wildlife, and probably not for people either seeking to coexist with wildlife. One of the features of this community. And it's especially bad for pronghorn, which are also sometimes called antelope. The extension of the grassland habitat south into Chino Valley and Prescott Valley from farther north comprises a large proportion of the highest quality pronghorn habitat in the whole state of Arizona. And the parcel in question is part of that contiguous habitat. That parcel is substantially surrounded on 3 sides by Arizona State Trust land, and that whole part of Chino Valley is frequented by pronghorns. It's not unusual to see at least 30 to 40 pronghorns in that area at one time. And through one of our citizen science initiatives, we've collected data that show exactly that. Moreover, all of the land in that part of Chino Valley has been identified by the Arizona Game and Fish Department as a conservation opportunity area, and we believe that the area governments could do more to take advantage of that very opportunity. A recent article in the Prescott Courier newspaper noted that at least 40 articles over the last 25 years describing again and again how area governments have been confronted with the demise of pronghorn herds in our area, with knowledge of the factors that are responsible for that demise, and with knowledge of the policies that would allow us to keep pronghorns on our landscape coexisting with people. But again and again, decisions have been made that fragmented natural habitats and subdivided the pronghorn herds into smaller and smaller units that could not survive. We know a lot more now about how wildlife populations work, and we can do better with our land management decisions, especially if we get the advice of people that have expertise in wildlife biology. So I realize this is a different point than most other speakers have noted, but in a land where development is proceeding and squeezing wildlife into smaller and smaller areas, this is a real concern. And remember, Chino Valley has pronghorn right on its logo. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Paul Marshall.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As most people have already mentioned, about the noise issues, so I won't dwell on that a lot. But I live in the Prescott Prairie subdivision, and a lot of people move there because of the quiet neighborhood. Also, the dark sky, which would be degraded, I think, by the airport lighting. Also, I have a friend that has a observatory on his property on the northern part of Antelope Meadows, and this would be, he said it would basically destroy his ability to observe with the traffic going to 11 o'clock at night, the air flights, the time window. Also, there is potential with airports with the ground pollution. I know when they use the firefighting foam, I think there's a lot of what's called forever chemicals involved in that, and that seeps in. It takes a while for it to impact the water table, but there is concern that and I don't know how often that would be used. Hopefully not very many wrecks or crashes, but I don't know if there's training involved with the firefighters there. Also, potential for gas spills and things like that. So I know initially they're not talking about having refueling at the airport. I think that I'll give up the rest of my time. I think the noise issue has been covered pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I won't forget. I will not accept any more cards. Not even if that guy arrests me, I'm not taking them more. All right, Cindy Dicus.
My name is Cindy Dicus, and I was born and raised in Chino Valley, Arizona. I went to school here from kindergarten to 9th grade. Then we were bused into Prescott to finish up our high school years. Talk about rural, talk about quiet and peaceful. And then everybody else moved in, which was their right to move in. We've got all these new homes around us. We've got all these new people around us, new cars, lots of traffic in this area. My last name was Perkins as I grew up, and this is my family. And we were very honored to grow up in this town. And somebody asked what my grandparents, great-grandparents would have thought about this. They thought it was great to watch our family grow and to stay in this area. I also served time as the 911 dispatcher for the fire department for 18 years. I still continue to serve on our fire board. So we're very involved in the community. And during the 18 years that I was a fire dispatcher, I don't remember a whole lot of aircraft accidents. I remember 2. One was actually at the airport, and one was off towards Mingus Mountain. Not saying there wasn't more, because I didn't work all the time, but I worked a lot of the time. But these people who have moved into our town, the people who were born and raised here, you didn't hear our family complaining about them coming in, getting jobs, doing what they wanted to do in their homes. And that's what we would like to do. And none of these churches around here have 24-hour silence and peace. I mean, it's part of life. So I am very much in favor of this. And so are my kids, and so are my grandkids, and so are my siblings and my mom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I'm gonna mangle it. Tiffany Cherowell. How well I did, I don't know.
Great start.
Part of it is, could you spell it for me? Because I was having trouble with the writing.
CHIARAVALLOTI. Chervalotti. You can't read it and say it at the same time.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll just put Tiffany.
Tiffany C. Mm-hmm.
No disrespect intended.
Thank you guys for staying this late. I appreciate that. I really do. So I'm an unincorporated county resident, and I just want to say that I concur with those opposing the zoning change, and I really implore this commission to listen to their residents and those who have bared their hearts and hopes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being concise and not repetitive. She still has the same words as the people that spoke at the end of her name. Adrienne Dig. It looks like Diggs or could be Digga. Hard to read the writing. Adriana Diggs or Digga? Yeah, I better write that down. Patricia Kraut.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
If you could speak a bit louder, it'd be helpful.
I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Patricia Kraut, and I live and work at Garchin Institute in Chino Valley. Like many at Garchin Institute, I packed up my life and belongings and relocated because I truly believe in the mission of the Institute and in providing a place of peace and refuge in a world that's becoming ever more chaotic and divisive. Part of my role at Garchin Institute is meeting and welcoming visitors. Last Sunday, 2 days ago, I had the pleasure of meeting a man who lives in Prescott. He recently lost his wife to cancer. He came to Garchin Institute seeking a haven of peace and solitude so he could make some sense of his loss and find some answers to help resolve his grief. He left Garchin Institute with a renewed hope and a sense of healing.